who pays the piper plays the tune or calls the tune. So if they know it's the National Assembly that is involved in their resource allocation, even if there was competing recommendations, you tell EACC to pursue something, they will tell you they're still dealing with the recommendations of the National Assembly because that's where their bread is buttered. Madam Speaker, let me talk about the interview process. We have the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act. Madam Speaker, this is a statutory instrument, or this is law that relates to how Parliament shall conduct itself when it comes to constitutional and statutory appointments. And Madam Speaker, I do not agree with the committee on paragraph 13, page 16. Madam Speaker, I disagree with the committee when the committee makes reference to Standing Order 76 and 77. This interview should have been done in line with the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, the same instrument that the National Assembly has been using to vet the cabinet secretaries. And Madam Speaker, the reason why I say so is that the Public Appointments and Parliamentary Approval Act provides great detail on how this exercise should be conducted. Madam Speaker, that act says that Parliament shall focus on academic credentials, professional training, experience, personal integrity, and background of those who have been proposed to take up constitutional and statutory appointments. Being a member of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission is a constitutional appointment. And so, Madam Speaker, how I wish the committee would have made reference to the Act of Parliament that is currently in existence rather than to Standing Order 76 and 77. That act, if it would be properly implemented, and not with the kind of mischief that we have seen in past vetting for cabinet secretaries. Madam Speaker, there's a question that has always come up, the question of net worth. And I can tell you that many a times when you are vetting nominees to the cabinet, Kenyans do not remember what they said they're going to do. Because there is one thing for them to aspire to do something, but there's also the established government policies. I have seen some cabinet secretaries say how they are going to be publicly spirited and how they are going to do things differently. But let's remember that there are already budgets that have been established. There's already a president who is in office. And so if you come with views that are at variance with those of government, the existing budgets, existing plans, and the personal views of the president, then you are just going to get frustrated. But the question of net worth is one that has animated the nation. I saw a computation of the net worth of the nominees that are currently before the House, without getting to the substance of the matter, to be 10 billion. And Kenyans are offended. Kenyans are offended. What is this magic that politicians play that makes them wealth that serious corporate organizations cannot make? Madam Speaker, before I got into politics, I was in the financial services sector. You will find an insurance company collects revenue of 4 billion Kenya shillings. And at the end of the day, it makes a profit of 50 million. A technical profit. That is once the premiums have been collected and the claims have been paid. And that is an institution that perhaps has employed 200 people, that has got branches throughout the country, that is integrated, that is creating a lot of opportunities and contributions to the GDP of this country, that is paying taxes. At the end of the day, they'll probably make 50 million as an underwriting profit. What is this thing that members of parliament do that generates them the kind of profits that even insurance companies cannot generate? And it is becoming an insult to the people of this country. The majority who cannot afford, the majority hustlers, we are building for them 2 million houses, 3 million houses, and then we are proclaiming that we are billionaires. How will a billionaire understand the needs and aspirations of that person whose biggest wealth is a 2 million house? Madam Speaker, if we were faithful to this process, even these applicants who are here, we should see an annexure showing how much they are paid in taxes. If I'm worth 300 million Kenya shillings, Madam Speaker, the taxes I pay must be different from the taxes paid by somebody else in Kenya shillings. by someone else who just relies on a salary and has got nothing of value because their liabilities exceed their assets. Madam Speaker, another question that must be asked is a question of conflict of interest. In the substantive act that I've referred to, there is a question on conflict of interest. If my family is doing business, perhaps in the ICT sector, and then I get into government as a minister for ICT, I must disclose and I must lay out before Parliament how I'm going to prevent potential conflict of interest. In fact, in serious jurisdictions, once you get into certain constitutional and statutory positions, you put your assets or your wealth in a trust so that you are no longer directly involved. And so you are not compromised when it comes to procurement and provision of opportunities. We never ask those questions. Another question that we are required to ask under the Public Appointments Act is, have you ever been charged in a court of law? Madam Speaker, you don't hear those questions being asked. Another question we are supposed to be asked is, have you ever been advancedly mentioned in any report before Parliament? And Madam Speaker, all the 47 county governors have been adversely mentioned in reports before this House. And if we are taking seriously the reports of Parliament, which we must take seriously because we are Parliament, we must ask ourselves, during your tenure as Governor for Tana River, did the Auditor General ever raise queries? And did the Public Accounts Committee bring a report to the House? And did the House adopt a report that recommended your investigation and prosecution? You find a lot of people in public offices. There are reports we have adopted here, but when we are vetting them, we never ask those questions. And that is why, Madam Speaker, I must insist that this process should not be done in accordance with Standing Order 76 and 77. This process should be done in accordance with the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act. Let me finalize by saying that if we are going to see the annexures and satisfy ourselves that Madam Lynette Washiali Muganda and Mr. Mohamed Aden Abdi indeed were the best of the best, I will have no problem supporting this motion. But I will still need to be convinced to see the annexures, the CVs, the resumes, the minutes, and the proceedings of those meetings. Madam Speaker, the nominees, once they get to office, let them remember that they are there to represent the interests of county governments. They are not there to represent the interests of the executive. And that is why it is the Senate that has been called upon to nominate them. There are two nominees. There is one from the Parliamentary Service Commission, which is part of Parliament, but there's a specific nominee of the Senate to represent county governments. Let them remember they're representing county governments and not their stomachs and not the national executive. Let them focus on how they can help county governments to reduce their wage bill to go below 35%, because right now the general rate is 40% plus. Let them focus on building synergies with the county public service boards, county assembly service board, public service commission, so that we can have a better way of managing human resources in counties. Madam Speaker, the national government has given out a system called IPPD. IPPD, Integrated Personnel Payroll Management System. It only deals with the payroll aspect. Payroll is not HR management. Issues of recruitment, issues of appraisal, issues of promotion, issues of leave management, all those are not being managed in any system. And so we encourage these nominees to build those kind of synergies.
You have 1 minute to finish that sentence.
To build those synergies and to involve the Institute of Human Resource Management. The greatest resource that we have in county governments is a human resource. Let these two nominees go there knowing that they are going to look at the interests of county governments and not the interests of the presidency or of a broad-based government. Madam Speaker, my decision on support will be dependent upon the annexures.
Honorable Senators, we have that report which Senator KAJWANG